Hello, everyone. My name is Akif Hussain, and I wish a very warm welcome to all of you. We at King's Business Club are London's largest business society and regularly run events such as this one, interested in the world of business, finance, or entrepreneurship. We are very fortunate to be welcoming our today's guest, Axel Hefer, who's joining this KBC event from Düsseldorf, Germany. Axel Hefer is the current managing director and chief executive officer of Trivago. He was appointed as the managing director of the company in 2016. Considering on today's event, that the travel, tourism, and hospitality industry have been decimated by the impact of the coronavirus outbreak. Countries are still actively battling the deadly virus, but societies and industries are also looking to rebuild and re-emerge from the crisis. The recovery process for the travel industry will be complicated and lengthy. Hence, we will be discovering how Trivago wants to reposition itself during the post-corona period and what the future outlook for the travel industry looks like. Please bear in mind to utilize the chat function in case you would like to ask Axel any questions. We are more than happy to forward them to our speaker. Now, it's now a great pleasure to request Axel to address the audience. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much for having me. It's great to have the opportunity to discuss the future of travel with you. And I guess it would be better to do it in person, but given where we are, it's great to be with you.
Thank you, Axel. To start things off, we would like to go back in time and really reflect on your personal experience. So please take us to your mindset as new CEO at the beginning of the pandemic in March 2020, and tell us what were you thinking and what steps did you take to get organized and focused?
Yeah, that has been it has been quite a ride, I have to say. So I think I would go back even a bit further than March. I mean, we could see some very early signs in January, February in our Asian business. First started in the countries that had closest business relationships with China, and then spread to a certain extent. I do remember I was actually, one of my last business trips was in February to San Francisco. And the city was very empty, and I stayed in a Japanese hotel, and they didn't have proper breakfast anymore. And I asked them, okay, what's going on? So okay, there are no Japanese tourists anymore. Nobody's coming. And so that was like an early warning sign. Even at that time in Europe and the US, I mean, you couldn't see anything. So we actually even in February did not give guidance because we were a bit nervous. But let's hear that anything like what has happened would have happened. And then it really started to be much more tangible right after Carnival. Yeah? So when in northern Italy the first regional lockdown started and the travel bans of the US were imposed, we basically had, like, within 2 to 3 weeks, our whole business collapsed. So every morning with the daily revenue email, numbers would tumble and really collapse, and it was very difficult to focus on anything because everything was basically collapsing at the same time. And it was really, I do remember well, I mean, obviously it's not that easy to sleep because you try to do everything at the same time, reduce your costs, pull marketing campaigns, try to understand what's going on overall, talk to everybody you know, etc. And so I do remember it was a Saturday morning, and I got up at like 4:30 in the morning. So okay, I can't sleep anyway, so why not get up, have a tea, and then was sitting there and just thought, okay, it will be zero. So why do you even bother? Why do I even look at the numbers? They are lower every day than the day before, and of course it will be zero. And that was almost like that was to me one of the key thoughts, because after that thought, okay, it will be zero, relax, I had a bit more peace of mind, and that freed up my mind to think about, okay, what is after zero? It will be zero. It will be zero for a period. Okay, it will be long. How long exactly? Does that really matter? But what will be afterwards? And that thought we also used internally when we sent everybody into remote setup. It's really, okay, don't worry, the market is gone. But in summer 2021, it will be back. And we don't know exactly when it will come back, how quickly, but there is this basic need of traveling. And you do travel to spend time with people that matter to you. You do travel to make new experiences, to open up your mind, to get new perspectives. And that will not go away. That basic need will be there. So, but what will be different? And Yeah, and so I think it was really this one thought that helped tremendously, and it also helped me personally, but also the company to focus on the recovery side, even at a point in time when things were basically at zero. Yeah, so there wasn't no travel activity whatsoever.
Thank you, Axel. So you just reflected on the past issues and still said that there will be basic travel needs. But has COVID-19 changed the future of travel? And are there any types of traveling which will never be the same?
Never is a big word, and so there I would always be very, very, very careful. I mean, the good thing is everything that we see right now is that there is if anything, there has probably never been a more desire to travel than right now around the globe. Yeah, so there is an absolute need and a desire to travel, which is very positive. To what extent, I mean, what has really changed when we zoom out? I mean, a couple of things have changed. When we start with really the more obvious ones, I would say like 2 years ago, travel was pretty much a commodity. You knew that you could get anywhere at any point in time very easily, relatively speaking, easily, convenient. It didn't really feel, it felt safe to pretty much go to any, even the most remote place on the planet, to go there, to come back, to be there. So really, okay, it's just a thing. It's not a problem at all. And a lot of these things that we have been taken for granted are not a given anymore. Yeah? So you cannot easily get everywhere. It is not necessarily safe to be there. Yeah. So and you don't know for sure whether you can come back, because we've now experienced a lot of situations where things have. Just 1 second, Victor. Pass auf, guck mal, du musst das. Okay, auf geht's. Auf geht's. So there he is again. Yeah. The days are so long, yeah. So yeah. if you're not in school, anyway, we don't take that for granted anymore, and I think it will take years and years for us to relearn to get that comfort. And never is probably too long. At some point in time, we'll have forgotten about these days, and it will begin just normal to go wherever you want. But it will take some time. How much time exactly? It's impossible to predict. Yeah? So what does that mean for the travel patterns? That means that closer to home will feel better for the foreseeable future, because it's much more under control. So the better you know a destination, the more you can control the transportation, the better it will feel. And that's what we've seen in 2020. There will be a significant shift to domestic, more local, or more regional travel, depending on the region where you are. And I think that will persist for quite some time. The second aspect that I think is more permanent, is that it's more related to business travel. I mean, one thing that we are currently experiencing, so we are doing this from home, so and pretty much every company that you talk to is moving to some kind of remote setup or hybrid setup, and to a certain extent, that will normalize as well. We will go more often to the office, but it is by now accepted that you can have interviews, that you can have business meetings perfectly fine from a remote setup. You don't need to sit in the same room. Some things we want to do in one room, obviously, the strategy discussions, creative discussions, etc., and team building, but some things work perfectly fine, which means that you don't need to travel as much to have in-person meetings, both for meetings with people within your company and also with business partners. So we do expect a structural reduction in business travel, which will have all kinds of consequences in terms of destination mix of the airline connections, but also in terms of capacity adjustments that will need to happen.
Thank you very much. So you just said that desire for traveling has been so enormous. It's already been confirmed by research. So what would you say? Which countries and regions are expecting to be recognized as a safe destination for travel? And why exactly? Most importantly, in the European region, or for us, as in UK, Germany, or France?
I think it depends very much where you are based. So in Germany, for example, last summer, all the local destinations have gained significantly. So it was impossible to find anything at the coast. So completely overbooked, and the same will happen this year. Austria, Netherlands, I'm fully booked basically from Germany, and a lot fewer people, or hardly anybody, traveling intercontinentally, and a lot fewer people traveling to Southern Europe. In the UK was actually quite interesting, because the UK is I mean, like all of Northern Europe, obviously exporting tourists. Yeah, so there is a lot of demand for warmer weather for going further south, but was in the pandemic almost the last country that had predominantly international demand. Yeah, so demand for international destinations, whereas pretty much all the other countries moved to local. Okay, I don't know whether I can come back, so I'll just drive somewhere, and it's much better and controllable. And the UK was one of the last, but when the quarantine requirements to Spain were imposed pretty much overnight, I think it was over a weekend, that basically switched the demand immediately to local travel. So in a way, similar to what I said earlier, if you are in doubt whether you can actually come back and whether you can have the vacation that you anticipate, even in a region that you know very well, like Spain from a Northern European perspective, you rather go local. I would hope for the economies in Southern Europe that the governments will be able to give comfort that it is safe to go to the south and come back. If that is not the perception, then there will be pretty much everywhere a shift to more local destinations, as much as that is possible just by capacity.
Switching from location to time, do you think the type of travel will differ? So, meaning people will find more quality to the travel with less frequency and stay at the destination longer?
Yeah, so there are various theories around that. I mean, we think that there will be more shorter trips that are more in your proximity, and that there will be fewer and more conscious long-haul trips. And that is an overlay of both the sustainability aspect of traveling, where there is obviously a big debate and has been a big debate for quite some time, plus the experience that we've gone through, and by not seeing travel as a commodity anymore, it is much more a conscious decision. Okay, I'm going to the other side of the planet. So yeah, I then rather spend more time there and don't do it as often. But these kind of shifts are very, very difficult to predict, and that's I would say one thing that we've learned from the last couple of crises, that pretty much all the predictions are wrong. Directionally, I think it will move in that direction, but to what extent is almost impossible to predict.
So, are you comfortable of giving us a close estimation of when you expect the travel industry to bounce back fully? Will it be this summer or winter, or might it take even longer?
Yeah, I mean, so in terms of to reach the volume of 2019, there is no chance that I think very, very unlikely that the travel industry will rebound even 2022 to the levels of 19. I mean, because you do have business travel recovering much more slowly in all of these crises. Plus, you have this structural reduction in necessity to travel from business reasons that we talked about earlier. So, I mean, the estimates range from 23 to 24, 25 is actually, there's a very, very conservative, very few people have that view. For us, I would be a bit more positive, so more 23 on the 23 side, because we have a relatively speaking small share of business travel, and our main users are price conscious and compare prices. I mean, that's our key value add. And so it is more the entrepreneur that is paying for his hotel himself rather than the corporate business traveler. Plus, obviously, then the individual traveling with friends or with family, searching for the best offer that is available.
Switching up topics here, an important tool to expand the travel industry might be the vaccine passport, as suggested, for example, by Qantas. Do you think there will be a vaccine passport in Europe, and how will it look like?
That's a very, very difficult question, because I don't think it's really a business question. It's a political question. I think it would be politically very, very dangerous to just allow people that have got a vaccine to travel, as long as not everybody has access to vaccines. So because the otherwise you could create, if you look at the current sequence of vaccinations, you could imagine a situation where you still have part of the population in lockdown, whereas another part is allowed to travel, which I don't think is politically something that we should aspire. If it is a supplement just to testing requirements, I think it is actually a good idea. So just to make it easier and reduce some of the costs and the friction through testing requirements and quarantine requirements. But to be honest, we're taking a pragmatic approach there. That's the task for politicians to come up with a way to actually allow travel. And we will support whatever is wanted from a political perspective.
Getting back to Trivago, how do you plan to reposition or even restructure Trivago for the post-pandemic era?
Yeah, so we've made a lot of changes. Absolutely. I mean, obviously we had to adapt if there is no travel industry anymore, like early last year. It is actually also something. It's a huge opportunity. It's almost a once in a lifetime opportunity. If you don't have any customers, you have to focus on a future customer, which in a normal business you don't really have to, because you constantly have a customer. So you don't need to take a step back and think about what really the future needs are. And we had that opportunity and used that opportunity. And I mean, similar to what we talked about earlier. We do think that there will be a demand for more and higher frequent local travel, just to get a short break, 1 day off, 2 days off, short trips. And there, we do think that there is an opportunity by really promoting not the most popular destinations, which everybody knows anyway. Everybody knows London and Edinburgh, etc. But what are actually the hidden gems that are smaller cities, beautiful, that are not on top of your list, but by doing more and shorter trips, you will want to go to, because you don't want to go to London on every weekend trip that you do throughout the year. So we have developed a new product there that is promoting destinations that you can reach from where you start. So it's more inspirational. It's offering more reasons to travel compared to our core product, which requires you to know already where you want to go by when, and is then helping you to optimize for that specific trip. It is. I mean, we are working on a second big release, and there will be many more to come. But that is definitely one thing that we have done. And there we have got more products in the pipeline that are trying to support you to basically serve the same basic need that is served by traveling, which is really, I think if you take it to the extreme, it is doing something together with people. So and with people that matter to you, that is what really traveling is about. And there are many other things that you can do there.
Thank you very much. Staying with Trivago and really going back in time to the early times when it was a startup. So I would like to ask, from startup to NASDAQ, what was the most challenging experience in building and growing the business from ground up? I understand you were the CFO when Trivago went public, so maybe you can give us some insight about the operations behind.
Yeah. So what was the biggest challenge to scale up? I think there are different stages. Yeah. So in the very early days, you need to prove to yourself, but also to your business angels that you actually have a case. Yeah. So I think that's always the first step, and that it is actually the most difficult thing, I think, at the beginning, is to say no to a lot of the ideas that you have and focus on the right one. Because they usually, and for us it was the same. We started as a travel community, more like a Wikipedia for travel, and it was okay, but it wasn't great. And then we realized that we we got more and more advertisement for the same hotel, and it looked very awkward because we had the same hotel from different advertisers next to each other, and then developed really a price comparison for hotels, and then had to make a decision. Do we want to have that as a one feature, or do we want to focus entirely on that feature and drop everything else? And this saying no to opportunities is very, very difficult. And thankfully, we said no to everything else and just focus on this one thing, which on day one cost us a lot of money, but we recovered very quickly and realized that that was really the product that with the greatest customer need, easy to communicate, and then scaled it up from there, and we're profitable very, very quickly. Which is then the second big step. Yeah. So the point in time where you don't really need external funding anymore, that obviously changes everything. The next milestone, I would say, is when you grow beyond 300-ish people. And the reason why that is almost like a magic number is that you as a founder don't know everybody anymore. Yeah. So you manage indirectly, you manage people that manage people and hire people, which is very different than really knowing everybody yourself, and in a way managing to a certain extent everybody still yourself, or being able to influence what everybody is doing. So it's a big step for an organization. Doing the IPO was just from a technical perspective was a huge challenge, because we said, okay, we want to do the fastest IPO ever, because it's just a waste of time. So it's a huge distraction from the business. So let's just get over it and do it as quickly as absolutely possible. And we outsourced pretty much everything. We had a team in the beginning of 2. So one colleague of mine and myself basically worked on it, and everybody else focused on the business. And then we built the organization and hired people in parallel of basically preparing the listing, and managed to get it done. Basically, we had the kickoff beginning of July, and we listed mid of December. So within a bit more than 5 months. So it was very, very quick. But I think that was, and it was very tough. so it was pretty hard work. But I still think it was the right decision, because if you just do it for 1 year or 2 years, it is not that it's just the same amount of work. It's then twice as much work, because you go through the document again and over again and optimize more and do a bit more here and there. And by doing it in a very short time period, you have to focus on what really matters. And that forced discipline is just helping you to overall spend a lot less time on it, because in the end, you have to go public, and then the journey is just starting. So the journey as a public company is then at the beginning, and it's not at the end. So I think that would be perhaps one of the key learnings there. And in terms of what to watch out for when you go public, I mean, there we can have like an hour discussion about it, and we wouldn't be able to cover everything. But I think since we've gone public, I'm more and more skeptical of investor relations, to be honest, because what you can do through very good investor relations is you can basically communicate your direction, and you get credit for what you will do, and you can bring that forward. But in the end, in the midterm and long term, all that matters is what you do and what you do deliver. And it is important, obviously, to communicate and to explain why you do things and why then you achieve certain things. But there are a lot of companies that spend a huge amount on investor relations. And I think there the same thing applies. It is more about what are the key things to focus on and to communicate. And in the end, it only matters what you deliver.
Thank you. So you just explained Trivago's road to funding and how complicated at the end it was. So Rahul, one of our viewers, just picked up on the funding aspect, and he asked, at the moment, it's obviously very difficult to travel-related startups to get funding. What would you tell an investor that would help convince them to invest in your travel-related startup?
That's a very good question. I think the the real answer is, okay, it is one of the biggest growth industries for the years to come. So the growth will be huge. And the opportunity in 2021, and that's also, I mean, we don't have any issues recruiting. So we've hired a lot of very, very talented colleagues, despite the fact that we are losing money. And so, and the key thought there is, this is the point in time where you want to be in travel, because this has actually never happened before, that one of the largest global industries has disappeared and is now starting again. And this restart is not where you go back to where you started. It will be a bit different, and there are opportunities, and not every company will actually will have the same perspective what the opportunities are. So there will be more movement in the market, and that is the huge opportunity. That's also what is exciting all of us to really in a way re-enter the market, or face customers again, and see how the market will be distributed then after 1, 2, 3 years after the restart. And that is the same from a startup's perspective. I think what is important though is to appreciate the current situation and the challenges that you have in this restart, and think about what is a proof point for the investor. So what actually do you promise in return for the money? There will be a lot of uncertainty. I think there is a very big reward, because it will be easier to gain market shares and to innovate in the current situation compared to a few years ago. But how can the investor get comfortable after 3, 6, 9 months that the investment is actually safe, and that it makes sense to do a second round and fund the company even further?
Thank you very much. So we were just talking about Trivago's IPO, and switching up the company and going to Airbnb. A viewer is also asking, does the recent Airbnb IPO and the profitable restructuring worry the future of hotels and people who really travel opt for a more authentic and local experience?
Yeah, I mean, their Airbnb's view is clear. I mean, if you read their IPO prospectus, their view is that there is a fundamental shift in the market. I mean, our view is slightly different. Our view has been pre-pandemic that, and it's still our view that the accommodation type will become a lot more hybrid. I mean, you had before the pandemic companies on the rise like a Sonder, which is basically they are operating full buildings of apartments, but very standardized, where it's very predictable what kind of experience you will get. Which is in particular appealing to business travelers. You have a small reception where you know that you can get the keys, etc. So is it an apartment? Yeah, but not really. Is it an hotel? Yes, but not really. So somewhere in between. And also with Marriott's move into vacation rentals, you can see that there is a lot more fluidity of different players basically serving different needs, because the basic need is not I want to stay in an apartment or I want to stay in an hotel. The basic need is I'm traveling with young children, so I need to have a kitchen. I don't care whether that is in an hotel building or whether that's in an apartment. Or the basic need might be I just want to have my own space, or I want to go to a gym. I don't care whether there is gym access in the apartment or whether there is an hotel. So I think this rigid categorization will become more and more blurry, and that is also the reason why we decided very early on to be one of the only players, I would say, or one of very few players that is comparing offers from apartments and hotels side by side, because the fundamental need that is served is actually is the same, and it is very difficult and will be increasingly difficult to say that for a specific situation you can only find and serve that need through hotels or through apartments. It will be more and more a combination. And yeah, I think that will be the trend. And with that in mind, it will be even more difficult in the future to answer your question. Because if the categories are not that clear anymore, then who's gaining, who's winning? But I think everybody has to learn and appreciate what need is better served by other players, and then try to incorporate that into the own offering, and also try to serve those needs better to make sure that still the whole market is available.
Thank you, Axel. So George is asking, are you considering flight plus hotel lines, similar to competitors for Trivago, and or a model more similar to Travelzoo or Flash Sale in the future?
Yeah, so in terms of packages, it is something that we currently don't offer. That is correct. I mean, we made one acquisition end of last year, weekend.com, which is a company that is offering packages, so flight and hotel combinations, but with a slightly different use case. So it's not purely price comparison for a specific intent, like in our core product. It is more offering inspiration for a specific need. Yeah? So if you have decided that you want to do a nice city trip, let's say within Europe, but you're indifferent really on which weekend and where exactly you want to go, it just should be a good connection and a very nice hotel in an attractive city. Weekend.com would basically filter out the best options to go to various different cities and compare the hotel and the price and the prices for flights with the specific destinations, and then make that proposal. So it's not a 100% matter offering, but it's more it's more an OTA offering, but the basic need is very similar that is served.
We would like to expand on Trivago's operations there a bit. So how is Trivago reacting to Google offering cost-free clicks in its own calculation and now, and Google's impact on the meta scene long term?
Yeah, I mean, Google is obviously the frenemy of everybody. So Google has, in particular in Europe, but overall, very, very, very strong market positions in a lot of key elements of the overall digital ecosystem. Search, clearly, browsers, mobile operating systems, etc. And they have for many, many years started to offer own further downstream products and are competing with their customers. And clearly we are competing head to head with their products, as are many, many other companies. On the other hand, Google is also our biggest marketing partner. And so, yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's a situation where it's not really a new situation. It is a situation where we need to leverage our strength, and our strength is that we are a much smaller company, and we are a more innovative company. So we can innovate faster, we can change direction faster, we can take decisions much faster, and in a way, as long as we out innovate Google, and our users will appreciate that. But if you're in that kind of industry dynamic, you need to out innovate, obviously, your competitor. If the competitor has like these very, very big advantages by having access to other steps in the overall ecosystem.
Thank you. So staying with Trivago's future plans, as we all know, consumers are environmentally conscious, and it's increasing. So how do you think, how will climate change will shape the future of the travel industry? And how's Trivago's role in manifesting this agenda?
It's also a very good question, and to be honest, I mean, I don't really have the real answer to that. I mean, we would love to do more on the sustainability side, but given that we are focused on accommodation, it is actually not that straightforward, because the biggest issue is obviously the transportation, and we don't really cover transportation. Yeah, so it's something that we are thinking about, and where we're trying to actually also support. But I think really the biggest support and the biggest push has to come from the providers of transportation, and also from services around transportation. I do think that the pandemic will have had a positive impact already by the decommissioning of old planes. So a lot of old capacity that is also expensive has left the market already. And some of the government support programs have some clauses that require the airlines to buy more fuel efficient engines. So there will be automatically some positive movement. And then I think it is about really in particular on the long haul trips, to try to do fewer, but then to stay longer. And that has by far the biggest impact. How often do you take long trips by air? How often do you fly? And can you reduce your overall air miles without really reducing your desire to travel? Which is one of the trends that we do expect to persist. Yeah? So so further away trips will and long haul trips will get a bit longer, and in return there will be more local and shorter trips.
Thank you very much. So we have another viewer who is interested, and she's asking, looking back at the past year or two, with the impacts imposed by the COVID-19 pandemic, is there anything you wish you would have done differently, or you wish you had tried in the past 2 years?
Yeah, I mean, of course. I mean, there. In hindsight, it's always easy to say, okay, oh, I should have done this and I should have done that. I mean, to be perfectly honest, I don't really. I mean, I'm thinking about it slightly differently, so I can't really answer that question very easily. It's very difficult for me to answer because to me, looking back is much more about, am I making mistakes in patterns? Yeah? So is there any pattern of taking wrong decisions, and not is there a wrong decision? If you think about too much about your wrong decisions, it's holding you back and taking decisions in the future, and it's leading to some risk aversion. So it's much more, oh, actually, I'm systematically making the same mistake over and over again. That is actually very interesting and very important to really look into and spend a lot of time on, whether you have pushed the right product a bit too soon or a bit too late, or it was the wrong product. I don't know. I mean, I don't think it's really that helpful to think about that way, because at that point in time, you didn't have access to all the information that you have right now. I mean, one thing that is an easy one is, I mean, based on what I know right now, we would have moved earlier into a remote office setup. We were a bit late, and it was a bit because things were changing so quickly. It was a bit difficult to stay up to date. And yeah, I mean, there I have to say, even based on the information that was available at that point in time, I should have taken the decision earlier. But yeah, just to look back and say, okay, based on what I know right now, this and that was right or wrong. I mean, that's not the way I'm typically looking back.
Continuing to our last questions coming from Ellen. Do you think the development of AR or VR will bring the travel industry to the next crisis?
Yeah, it depends. Yeah, so if it helps you to make better decisions of where to travel to and have a better understanding of what you can expect, I think it could be helpful. Can it actually replace travel? From our perspective, I mean, the way we are thinking about our business and thinking about our purpose, no, because it's about bringing people together and not through a Zoom meeting, but really in person, and then experiencing something together. And there, it's hard for me to imagine to really do that fully virtually. I don't think that's the same thing. It's because it's not just what you see, it is the whole experience that you want to have together. So to a certain extent, perhaps, but we can see it right now. Yeah. So what are we missing most? It's not the discussion with our friends and seeing our friends. It's being with our friends, and that is very difficult to imagine to solve that through VR.
That's true. Thank you very much, Axel. Unfortunately, this is all what we've got time for today. Thus, I would like to use this opportunity to thank Axel Hefer for the great answers and exciting input about the industry. We appreciate you taking the time today and sharing your evening with us. Also, everyone, please bear in mind, we have some great events recently posted on our YouTube channel, including Nobel laureate Professor Mohammed Yunus. So I really encourage you to check those out if you're interested. Please also check us out on social media for updates about more events in the future. And if any questions or queries, don't hesitate to ask us.